We are honored to welcome to our Newsmaker line the former governor of the state of Arkansas, Mike Huckabee, and also a potential candidate for the presidency of the United States in 2012. Governor, welcome to Focal Point with Bryan Fischer.
Thank you very much, Brian. Good to be with you.
Great to have you back on again. And, Governor, last time we had you on, we were talking about a book that you had written about Christmas, and you've got a brand new book out entitled A Simple Government. So give us the essence of what this book is really all about.
Well, Brian, what I try to do is to take so many of the issues that we're facing as a country and ask, what is the common sense, simple principle that we could apply to dealing with this? And so it's really an affirmation that American government was never intended to be as complicated as Congress has made it. The original Constitution, in fact, was 20 pages. The Obama health care bill alone was 2,300 pages. So what I try to do in this book is just say that there are some solutions. They may not be easy, but they actually are pretty simple.
And so it looks like, Governor, this could be a possible template to serve as a platform for a candidate who might be interested in the Oval Office in 2012. What's your reaction to that possibility?
Well, the book certainly is a declaration of what I stand for and what I believe, and whether I run or not, it certainly is going to be helpful to me to know whether people think these ideas would work. It is a part of my process of trying to determine, do people agree with me that we need to spend less and not borrow money we can't afford to pay back, and return a lot of our functions of government back to cities and states and away from the centralized federal government? Those are some of the things that I try to discuss and explore, and I'll be anxious to see how people respond to it.
One quick thing before we jump back into the content of the book and the potential race in 2012. Yesterday, you stirred up a bit of a storm in the blogosphere over some comments about President Obama's boyhood in Kenya. Just wanted to give you an opportunity to set the record straight on that.
Well, it's kind of interesting that apparently a lot of these bloggers, I misspoke, and I should have said Indonesia instead of Kenya. And there's a page in my book, page 183, in which I talk about the influence that I believe that Obama's Kenyan father and grandfather might have had on him in relationship to the Brits. And
yes.
I quote from an article in the UK Examiner. Now, from that, we were talking, and, you do 30, 40 interviews a day, which I'm doing during the book tour. And instead of saying Indonesia, his childhood there, I said his childhood in Kenya. Well, the next thing you know, they have me saying that I believe Obama doesn't have a birth certificate, that he was born in Kenya. There's nothing like that. In fact, this talk show host, Steve Malzberg of WOR Radio, has been livid. He actually played the quotes, the actual tape, to the New York Times reporter, who took it, listened to it, and then turned around and wrote a story that was polar opposite of what the facts said. And it's really an indication of just how pathetic some of these folks are that claim to be journalists and reporters and have failed to do a decent job. I admitted that I misspoke on that, but I corrected it. But what I've never done is taken the position that Obama was born in Kenya or Indonesia or anywhere other than Hawaii, where he claims to have been born. Frankly, Brian, that's not a popular position with conservatives, but it's the position that I have consistently taken. And I just am very amazed at the firestorm this has caused, especially in light of the fact that the talk show host himself has said there's nothing to it.
Well, and Governor, what got lost in all the shuffle is the legitimate point that you were making, is that we may have a president who has some fundamentally anti-American ideas that may be rooted in a childhood where we had a father who was virulently anti-colonial, hated the British, might have something to do with the president returning the bust of Winston Churchill back to England. I was struck by the fact when he made his tour to Indonesia, he made a point of going to an Indonesian memorial that celebrated the victory of Indonesians over British troops. Again, part of that anti-colonial thing. And so I'd like you to comment on that if you think, you seem to think there's some validity to the fact that there may be some fundamental anti-Americanism in this president.
Well, and that's exactly the point that I make in the book. And I don't know why these reporters, maybe they can't read. I guess that's part of it, because it's clearly spelled out, and I'm quoting a British newspaper who really were expressing the outrage of the Brits for that bust being returned. And the point was that they felt like that due to Obama's father and grandfather, it could be that his version of and view about the Mau Mau Revolution was very different than most of the people who perhaps would grow up in the United States. And I have said many times publicly that I do think he has a different worldview. And I think it's in part molded out of a very different experience. Most of us grew up going to Boy Scout meetings, and, our communities were filled with Rotary clubs, not madrasas. And I just do think that there is, again, I'm not saying he's not a citizen. I've never said that. I've said the opposite. I've never said he's a Muslim. If the reporters could read page 1 of my book, they could get all that, because that's the first thing I talk about on the very first page of the book. But they'd rather not read for themselves, and they'd rather just jump to a conclusion that absolutely isn't there. I wish they would ask, though, does this president have a different worldview than any other president in the history of the United States?
Well, and it seems to me that's the issue you were driving at, and that's the one I think they want to avoid by making an issue out of something that you said yesterday in this interview. Let me ask you quickly, Governor. I want to. We've got just a couple minutes left, and I want to talk about a couple of things from the book. But the question I've had about a possible candidacy for you in 2012, you're building this beautiful home in Florida. You got a great gig with Fox. Can you afford to run for the presidency of the United States?
Well, Brian, that's a good question. The fact is, the decision I make is not going to be based on my own personal finances, because my wife and I walked away from a comfortable living when I first ran for office back in 1991-92. When I ran for president, we cashed in my life insurance and annuities. I understand what it is to take all of your resources and assets and start all over again. So that's not going to be the factor that gets me in or out. I find it amusing when reporters have all these speculations, and they seem to know me better than I know myself. But the fact is, this is a decision that I'm going to personally make. And if I get a sense of real clarity that this is what I'm supposed to do, I'll do it. If I don't, I won't. Simple as that.
Now, we got breaking news this morning that Fox News has actually suspended Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum as contributors because they, quote, have signaled possible runs for the presidency. Any reaction to that? Any possible implications for you in that?
Well, if I see Fox News pop up on my phone ID, maybe I shouldn't answer it. I don't know. I was not made aware of that, and, of course, I'm not privy to the day-to-day business operations. I do my job and do the show on the weekend and make some appearances for Fox. But those are decisions that they make. I know that they're very sensitive, and I also know that in my own contract, if I take any steps officially to become a candidate, if I raise money or tell someone I am definitely running, then, yeah, I'm off the air immediately. So I'm very aware of that. It's one of the reasons I'm not in a big hurry to go out and make an announcement. I'm not in a hurry to take the steps until I know for sure that I'm supposed to be a candidate, that I'm going to be a candidate, that I want to be a candidate.
Governor, we got about 30 seconds left. I want to give you start the book talking about parenting and family values and about this supposed split between social conservatives and fiscal conservatives. Why can we not allow that kind of division in our thinking?
Well, social conservatives, Brian, are fiscal conservatives in every case that I'm aware of. And what we have to do is to remind people that there is a direct financial consequence of broken families. The most important form of government, the first one we ever experienced, is our family. We're taught right from wrong. We're taught what the boundaries and parameters are. What I do in this book is to show that there is a $300 billion a year dad deficit from fathers who disappear from their families and leave it to the taxpayers to pick up the cost.
Governor, I'm afraid we got coming up a hard break. I got to let you go.
Okay.
Great book, A Simple Government by Governor Mike Huckabee. Thank you, Governor, for being with us. God bless you.